The 2025 NFL Draft is officially in the books. So how did the silver and black grade out? That plus more on Monday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for April 28th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast, or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, you know we appreciate both. The show continues to grow each and every day, and that's because of your support and the job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, whether I'm on the road or I'm back at the house in Studio Q. He does a fantastic job. We definitely appreciate him. He does a great job. And again, without him, there is no Locked On Raider podcast YouTube page. So big ups to Ari. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. I'm on Twitter as well, at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, you know we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line at 707-654-4693. And now that everything is in the books, right, there's no more speculation of what the Raiders should do. Maybe they should do this because of this, that, and the third. You know, just we have the inside scoop. None of that matters anymore. It is all in the books. The Raiders made their selections. They've signed undrafted free agents. We know what it is, and now moving forward with the team. So happy about that. A lot of feedback. We'll get to that coming up in segment number 3. Segment number 2, how big could this draft end up being for the silver and black? I think for anyone who's been paying attention and once the draft got wrapped up, started to immediately look around to see what, you know, the national guys, the smart guys, the analysts, all this, that, and the other started saying about the Raiders. For the most part, everyone's had a really good feedback on what John Spytek and Pete Carroll were able to do. So we'll talk about that coming up in segment number 2. How big of an impact can this draft class have on the Raiders team moving forward? Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day, and it really just has to do with going over who the Raiders selected, the 11 players that they signed, or the 11 players that they drafted, and then the 15 to 16 guys that they've signed so far as undrafted free agents. We'll do all that in segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast after I tell you about the title sponsor of this show, and that is the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Make sure you stay tuned for the Armada draft pick of the week. That'll come up later in the show. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. The Raiders went into the draft starting on Thursday, and they only had 9 players, right? They made a trade for Geno Smith, the quarterback from Seattle. They gave up a third-round pick. They had originally 10 draft picks. They went into it with 9, and they left with 11. Really good strategic job by GM John Spytek. First time he's been at it. Pete Carroll had mentioned the Friday before I left for Green Bay to go to the draft. He had mentioned that John Spytek, it might be his first year being the GM, but he doesn't seem like he's a first-time guy at it. Seems like he's very well seasoned. Obviously, Pete Carroll's been around it for a long time. He's been there, done that, so that helped out as well. But I'll tell you what, GM John Spytek did not seem like a rookie when it came to what he was able to do in the draft. And the thing that stood out to me the most, and I know it got a little frustrating in round number 2 because the Raiders kept traded back multiple times before they finally made their selection in round number 2. He understood the assignment. He understood what we've been talking about when it comes to this draft for a very long time. A lot of starters, not a lot of stars. So he took advantage of that and said, hey, I've got this player here, this player there. I feel comfortable with this amount of players to draft. I think that I could trade back and collect more capital. He looked at it and realized the Raiders had a lot of holes. We've talked about that for a very long time. They got a lot of holes. They need to fill them, and they're going to get as many cracks at it as possible. A lot of people believe that that meant trading down from number 6 in the first round and collecting extra draft capital. Instead, he said, no, I'm going to make the pick at number 6, go get the big-time difference maker as far as Ashton Jeanty goes, the running back out of Boise State, and then I'll start making trades after that. So when it's all said and done, the Raiders end up with 11 draft picks. And I'm not guaranteeing that all 11 are going to make the roster. Some guys might be practice squad guys. Some guys might not cut it in training camp. And then there's a chance that all 11 do make it. And some of the guys that we see currently on the roster won't make it. But let's go ahead and go through it real quick and talk about the 11 players that the Raiders came away with. Obviously on Thursday, first round pick, number 6 overall, running back Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State. I mean, there's not really a whole lot I can say about that except for that's a big-time playmaker. That's a guy who's going to add to this Raiders offense, a guy that's going to go with Brock Bowers, a guy that's going to help out Geno Smith, a guy that's going to help out Jacoby Myers. I mean, he's just a difference maker. You know that. We're all excited about what he could bring to the table, especially after you see the rest of the draft. But Ashton Jeanty, number 6 overall in the first round. Then in the second round, after trading back multiple times, they end up with TCU wide receiver Jack Bech. Jack Bech is the young man that's got a hell of a story. A lot of people started talking about it after No, the New Year's because his brother Tiger actually passed away in the New Orleans the terrorist attack that happened on Bourbon Street, where the car just went, reaming down the street, and Tiger was actually one of the guys that lost his life because of that. And so that became a big story. Jack Besh went on to the Senior Bowl, and he showed out there. He was a guy that played at LSU originally. He's a boot boy, as my guy Ian Fitzsimmons from ESPN always talks about. He's a tough dude, tough as nails, and went to TCU and had a hell of a career there as well. So Jack Besh at number 58 overall, the Raiders select him at that wide receiver position. Then at number 68 overall, probably my favorite pick of the draft, possibly, cornerback Darian Porter from Iowa State. Big guy. He's got that prototypical size for a Pete Carroll, defensive back. He's one of those guys that's kind of in the mold of Richard Sherman. And again, Iowa State guys, I've talked about them for a very long time. I always love Iowa State players. They are coached correctly. Matt Campbell there does a fantastic job. When Brock Purdy was selected Mr. Irrelevant by the 49ers and then went out and played really well, people were like, man, what do you know about this guy? And I was like, he comes from Iowa State. He was really good there. David Montgomery comes from Iowa State, was really good there. Breece Hall comes from Iowa State, really good there. Iowa State puts out really good players. So when I saw Darian Porter, above 6 foot, he's still young at the position, was a guy that was a wide receiver at one point. He knows how to track the ball, and he's got the length of a Pete Carroll defensive back, drafted at number 68 overall by the Raiders. That got me pretty fired up. That's one of my favorite picks. Ashton Genty, I think, is going to easily be everyone's favorite pick, but Darian Porter is the guy I'm looking at like, okay, there you go. Then at the back end of round number 3, day number 2 of the draft, the Raiders go pick 98 and 99, and they go offensive line. We've talked about the offensive line. We talked about their sense of urgency. They need to go ahead and continue to build that thing up and provide some depth, and that's exactly what they did. First, they went with the interior offensive lineman, Caleb Rogers from Texas Tech. He was pick number 98. Then immediately after that, they went with the tackle, Charles Grant from William & Mary. Remember, we talked about it leading up to the draft. The Raiders will go with some small school offensive lineman. That's what John Spytek's been doing while he was in Tampa Bay with Jason Light. And then, boom, that happened with pick number 99, where they go Charles Grant from William & Mary. And Charles Grant's a guy that was getting a lot of burn. Does he have to develop? Absolutely. But the good thing about it is these guys, Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant, are all going to provide a lot of competition along that offensive line. You feel good about Colton Miller. I believe they'll get something done with his contract. You know what DJ Glaze brings to the table. JPJ will be the center. Now, all of a sudden, you've got a little bit of competition, right? They've got Dylan Parham there, who was selected by, Dave Ziegler two staffs ago, right? You've got Jordan Meredith, who they re-signed. They also brought Alex Kappa in. They signed him as a free agent once the Cincinnati Bengals let him go. So they have guys that they can compete for those interior spots. And so Caleb Rogers from Texas Tech and then Charles Grant are obviously going to be there to compete for the outside spot as well. But I like that they added depth immediately to the Raiders, the offensive line. Then kept the party rolling going into day number 3, the final day of the draft. Pick 108, wide receiver Dante Thornton Jr. This dude is 6'5" and runs a 4.3. I mean, 6'5" and runs a 4.3. I like this guy a lot, and I think that he's going to be a dude that can do exactly what I just said, be a speedster, right? He runs a 4.3 40, and he's 6'5", right? This is a typical Al Davis pick, right? A guy speed kills. He is that guy. Coming out of Tennessee, that Josh Heupel offense, I talk about it quite a bit. It's not one of those offenses where it's really complex. It's very user-friendly, I like to say, as far as quarterbacks go and wide receivers. And I don't think that he's going to be all of a sudden some alpha wide receiver, like the number 1 wide receiver, but he can develop into that. Having Brock Bowers there as the tight end and target number 1, having Jacoby Myers as the tactician, really good route runner, a guy that just finds a way to get open and then gets yards after the catch. Having a guy like Thornton that all of a sudden could just take the top off the defense is fantastic. He's a speedster that we talk about when we talk about Trey Tucker, but he's also 6'5". Go up and high point the ball, and he also could just break away. He doesn't have the greatest route running because at Tennessee they didn't ask him to do that, but he can run past the DB. That's something to get excited about. Watch out for Dante Thornton Jr. out of Tennessee, picked in round number 4. 135, going back to the defensive side of things, defensive tackle, Tonka Hemingway out of South Carolina. Big dude, just a big dude. He's a guy that you want to look forward to. He's going to add some more depth to that defensive line that's continuing to grow and get better and better and better. You think about the guys they have at that D tackle position, Christian Wilkins, whatever his health ends up being, he's there. Adam Butler is there. We know that. I mean, they're going to have depth at that defensive tackle position. Tonka Hemingway is going to help that. Also, pick at 180, another defensive tackle, J.J. Pegues, Ole Miss, right? Another big boy, but he actually started out on the offensive side of things. He's one of those guys that you can go ahead and throw in there in the red zone, the goal line, put Ashton Genty behind him, and you can either give it to J.J. or you can give it to Ashton, but he's going to be one of those dudes that's going to help get into the end zone. So I'm looking forward to what Pegues can bring to the table. Very versatile dude. He's going to be a defensive tackle. Make no mistake about it. He's not playing offensively, all the time, but he is a guy that you'll see go in there in the mix. And I always like that when there's a little bit of a wrinkle when a big either offensive lineman steps into the backfield or you see a big defensive lineman step into the backfield. That's what J.J. Pegues will bring to the table. Also, couple quarterbacks, right? Couple FCS quarterbacks. Pick 213, quarterback Tommy Mellott from Montana State. He's a quarterback, but he's not going to play the quarterback position. They announced him as a wide receiver, but he's a guy that can kind of play that slot wide receiver role, just kind of be that gadget guy. And again, he's a quarterback as well. Then just a couple picks later, another quarterback, Cam Miller out of North Dakota State, a guy who threw for a lot of yards at North Dakota State, but he also ran a lot as well. So I saw my guy, Vinny Bonsignore, he kind of tweeted out and said, I'm interested to see what he would look like in a Chip Kelly offense, and I am as well. I think he's going to do some really good things. So Cam Miller's in the mix at 215. And then the last pick that the Raiders had, and my guy Ryan Hogue, former Mr. Irrelevant, back in 2003 by the Raiders, actually announced this at the draft, which was really cool. Big fan of Ryan. He's a good dude. Linebacker Cody Lindenberg. He's the guy who's going to be the Raiders linebacker at pick 222. So that was the 11 guys. They went into the draft with 9. They traded back multiple times, ended up with 11, and I thought every one of their picks made a lot of sense. So when I went to NFL.com, as many people did, to kind of see what the grades are, and look, we don't know what this draft class is going to be for a couple of years, see how it all plays out, what these players do. But Chad Reeder from the NFL.com, day 1 grade for the Raiders, A+. Day 2 grade for the Raiders, A. Day 3 grade for the Raiders, A. When was the last time you saw 3 days of the NFL draft where a national writer gave the Raiders all A's? Think about that. We talked about it quite a bit leading up to the draft. There's a lot of adults in the room. There's a lot of guys that seem like they have plans in the room, and those plans played out with those 11 draft picks. I thought they did a really good job. So Chad Reeder said on NFL.com, I suspected Genty's strength through contact and open field bursts wouldn't make it past the Raiders if he was still in the green room in Green Bay. General Manager John Spytek and head coach Pete Carroll hit the right notes with Besh at receiver and Rodgers and Grant improving the offensive line. The Raiders needed at least 2 receivers in this draft, and they hit a home run with Thornton, an underutilized size speed guy. Hemingway brings activity and Pegues size to the team's defensive line rotation. They picked both of the quarterbacks who played in the 2024 FCS championship game, Miller from North Dakota State and Mellott from Montana State. Miller has potential as a reserve, and Mellott, who put up elite workout numbers and ran routes as a receiver at his pro day, was announced as a receiver when he was picked. So again, A+, A, and A from Chad Reeder from NFL.com. Does that mean that they're all going to be home runs? No, but it's just the initial reaction to what the Raiders were able to do. Also, John Spytek, when he met with the media following the draft on Saturday evening, let it be known that the Raiders were going to be signing around 15 undrafted free agents. So I'll just go through their names really quickly. Then we'll jump into segment number 2 and talk about what kind of impact this draft class can have on the silver and black. So the undrafted free agents that they signed, they actually have 16 of them that I know right now. There could be 1 or 2 that I miss out on, but we'll definitely make sure we continue to keep you updated on that. UNLV quarterback Haj Malik Williams, he was 1. Old Dominion fullback and tight end Pat Conroy. Towson tight end Carter Runyon. Iowa State guard center offensive tackle Gerard Hufford. And then Virginia Tech offensive tackle Parker Clements. Baylor defensive end and defensive tackle Trayvon May. Minnesota defensive end Ja Joyner. Baylor linebacker Matt Jones. Indiana linebacker Jalen Walker. Kansas cornerback Mello Dotson. U.S. cornerback Greedy Vance. James Madison cornerback Jordan Taylor, Arkansas cornerback and safety Hudson Clark, USC cornerback Jordan Humphrey, SMU nose tackle Anthony Booker Jr., and Illinois wide receiver Zachariah Franklin. Those are all the Raiders' undrafted free agents that I know of as of right now, 16 of them. And, of course, if they gets updated or whatever the case may be, and we'll see that over the course of the next few days. We'll see guys sign. We'll see guys released. We'll see guys brought in for workouts, invites. But those are the 16 guys that are currently with the Raiders as far as undrafted free agents to go along with the 11 that they drafted in the 2025 NFL Draft. One more quick note before we get to segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Hunter Renfrow Former Raiders wide receiver Ian Rappaport from NFL Network tweeted this out on Sunday night. Comeback. Former Raiders wide receiver Hunter Renfrow signing with the Panthers, making his return to the NFL after a year away, per me and Tom Pelissero. The ex-Pro Bowler and Clemson star joins his hometown team as Carolina adds post-draft. So Hunter Renfrow is now a member of the Carolina Panthers. When he was released from the Silver and Black over a year ago, I was told that there was only a handful of teams that he actually was interested in playing for. I believe the Saints were one because of the connection with Derek Carr. His hometown, Carolina Panthers, was another one because it's his hometown. I was actually surprised when he visited with the Raiders, but I was all for a return because I just know Hunter Renfrow, being the pro that he is, would have fit in really well with what the Raiders are trying to do. But big ups to Hunter. Never mad at him. I thought he was a hell of a player while he was with the Silver and Black, and I wish him nothing but the best moving forward. So Hunter Renfrow now a member of the Carolina Panthers. Coming up in segment number 2, how big of an impact can this Raiders draft class have on the team this year and moving forward? We'll talk about that in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about Game Time. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, and even when demand is sky high, prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer. Their last-minute deals could save you up to 60%. You can save up to 60% on last-minute sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever the case may be. They've got all-in pricing, meaning no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay. Right now, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. It's all one word for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create the account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. What time is it? Game time? My mom likes when I say that. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to talk about this draft in general. And look, what we're going to do over the course of the next couple of weeks, we're going to break down each and every one of these players that the Raiders drafted. We'll even deep dive into the undrafted free agents, but we'll really deep dive into the guys that they selected and the kind of impact that they can make individually. But when I look at this class, I look at all the players that they selected, all 11, I think about the impact that they can have. And someone asked me immediately while I was at the draft, they thought, Q, how are you feeling about this draft? What are the Raiders doing? And I said my first thought was they're building a very tough team, right? We know that they want to be very competitive. We know Pete Carroll is all about competition. But to me, when I look at the players they're selected, they've also created a sense of toughness. Ashton Jeanty is one of the toughest dudes in the country to bring down. We saw that by him going over 2,600 yards as a rusher. Jack Besh, him and his story and what he's able to bring to the table. He's not a speedster, but he's a guy that'll go over the middle. He's a guy almost like Hines Ward type guy, right? A guy that just doesn't matter. He doesn't worry about taking the contact. He's going to make the catch, go over the middle, and deliver a blow himself, right? I mean, he's got that kind of style to him. You know, I was trying to think. I was trying to line up, you know, former Seattle Seahawks that I could say, maybe even like Percy Harvin, but Percy Harvin was way faster than him. But Percy Harvin was tough as nails as well. Right? Just guys like that. You know, that's who Jack Besh is. He's so tough, man. He's tougher than nails. Darian Porter, I've already mentioned him. Very Richard Sherman-like, right? With his length, his ability. He comes from Iowa State. He's a very willing tackler. Like, just, again, toughness. Then you got wide receiver Dante Thornton Jr., the speedster. That's very DK Metcalf-like. Very DK Metcalf-like. He's probably not built quite as strong as DK Metcalf because who is? I mean, that dude is built like a Greek god, but he's got that speed. He's got that big playability. And when the Seahawks were cooking with grease, what did they have? They had a great run game. They had short to intermediate passes with Tyler Lockett. They had, you know, Percy Harvin was there. They had multiple guys that can make plays. And then all of a sudden, as they evolved and guys left the team and came in, you know, then all of a sudden they got DK Metcalf, which was a big-time home run. So now you've got kind of a blend of all those guys on the same team at the same time, where Seattle didn't have that. Right? And Ashton Jeanty could prove to be very much Marshawn Lynch-like. Not saying he's Marshawn, but he could be very Marshawn Lynch-like. Then you got guys on the defensive side like Tonka Hemingway, toughness. J.J. Pegues, toughness, right? Again, a guy that can go in on the offensive side of things, be a fullback, and really mix it up. Yeah, he could be that dude. Toughness, right? Guys that come from FCS ball, Montana State, North Dakota State, quarterbacks, Malott and Miller. I mean, those dudes are tough because of what they've gone through, right, to be where they are. I just feel like if you had to summarize what this Raiders draft class was, I would just say tough. Tough. And people can assume what it means or not, but I say that tough, not like tough to swallow, not like tough to, look at and be happy about, but just the overall image and style of this team is tough. Something that I know the Raiders have tried to be for a while, and they haven't quite done it. This draft class, led by John Spytek and Pete Carroll, is exactly that as far as I'm concerned. Very, very tough. Again, you go back to what the theme of the draft was, not just with the Raiders, but the draft was what? Starters, not stars. That's what I told everybody that would listen. Daniel Jeremiah said it. Multiple analysts said it. It's stars, not really. If you're looking for that, it's not going to be a bunch of those, but you'll get a bunch of starters. It feels very similar, in my opinion, to the Raiders 2014 class, where you get a lot of foundational players, right? Get a lot of guys that can contribute early, and then the guys that aren't contributing early, they're going to push the guys in front of them, help to build the depth of this team. The one thing that the Raiders don't have, and they haven't had, even though they've had a good plan and approach of how they're going to build this team, they just haven't had the depth, right? Because they missed on so many draft picks. So they haven't had that quality depth. So if a guy gets injured, they have nobody behind them that they feel confident in that could roll in there. But again, it feels very 2014 to me. Like, if you go back and look at 2014's draft class led by Reggie McKenzie, he actually won, the front office GM of the Year award. 6 out of 8 picks were starters or big-time contributors, right? And then even Latavius Murray as the running back position, he came from 2013, but remember they stashed him on IR. So really they had 7 guys that were young dudes that all contributed. If you go back to 2014, Mack was the first-round pick, Carr second-round pick, Jackson was the third-round pick. Then you had Justin Jelly Ellis, you had TJ Carey, Shelby Harris. All those guys, big-time contributors. Really, out of their draft class, only Keith McGill and Jonathan Dowling, the two corners, didn't really do anything. Everyone else in that 2014 draft class really did. So if you look at this Raiders 2025 draft class, you got Ashton Jeanty, big-time contributor, big-time starter. Jack Besh, wide receiver. He's going to be a guy that's going to get plenty of burn, right? Then you got Porter, the cornerback. That's 3 starters, boom, 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 right there, right? And then there's other guys that have opportunities to make their name, right? I mean, again, Caleb Rogers, offensive lineman, Charles Grant, offensive lineman, they all have an opportunity. And Thornton, again, is the guy to get excited about. A guy, he's 6'5" and runs a 4.3 40. Like, what else do you want? You want to talk about a guy that can take the top off of defense, and you know who can get him the ball? Geno Smith, right? So that's something to get excited about. Like, I'm not saying he's going to be a starter. I don't believe he will be. I think Jack Besh will get in there and be starting way more than you see Thornton starting, but who cares? Right, he'll get in there in the mix. Matter of fact, a guy like Trey Tucker better step his game up. Trey Tucker is a former third-round pick. He was a burner out of Cincinnati, but they didn't pick him, right? John Spytek didn't pick him. Pete Carroll didn't pick him. And the size that Thornton has, if he could do the same thing that Tucker's doing, bye, Felicia, right? And again, not a disrespect to Tucker. I like him a lot, but he hasn't evolved into the guy that he was supposed to be. And he doesn't have the size to be dominant when the ball's in the air, right? He's not going to go and get the 50-50 ball that often. If Thornton is 6'5", how often do you think that they're going to take a chance to throw it up to him and say, yeah, we believe in our guy? Because he's going to get behind you and he's got the size. Yeah, there's some good dudes to look at. Hemingway, defensive tackle from South Carolina, Pegues from Ole Miss. I want to see Pegues get in on offense. I know he's a defensive tackle, but he's going to get in on offense. He's going to blow up some holes for Jeanty to get into the end zone, and Pegues is going to score a couple touchdowns. Pegues makes the 53-man roster, which I believe he will. He makes the roster. I'm saying he's scoring 3 touchdowns in 2025. I'm just going to throw it out there. I say he's going to score 3 touchdowns in 2025. It might be more, but I don't want to get greedy. Right, because Genty's going to get his, Bowers is going to get his, Myers is going to get his. There's going to be dudes that are going to score, early and often. I think this offense is, light years ahead of what it was when it ended in 2024. But I'm going to go ahead and go out on the limb. I'm going to get a little crazy, a little freaky with you. Pegues is going to score at least 3 touchdowns in 2025. That speed is awesome. Again, for Thornton, 6'5", 4'3", DK Metcalf, life just not quite built like that. Man, and then you got everyone else that's going to compete for playing time and jobs. And that doesn't even talk about the undrafted guys, right? Again, 16 undrafted guys. Haj Malik Williams, right, from UNLV. He came in when Matthew Sluka decided, I need more NIL money. I'm going to bounce a couple games into the season right when we start to get success. I'm going to bounce if you don't pay me. They said, no problem. Haj Malik Williams went in there. Now, is he a fantastic quarterback? No, but he can be a guy that could be added to the mix. He could be a camp arm. He could be a practice squad guy. He's going to be a guy that's going to compete. That's the other thing I know about all these guys. All these dudes all have that competitive drive to them. Something that I'm excited about. I talked about Iowa State guys. Their guard, center, offensive tackle, Gerard Hufford. He's an undrafted free agent. I like him too. I don't know him very well, but when he comes from Iowa State, I'm all in. So I think this could be a very smart foundational draft for the Raiders. They can really use this as their jumping off point. Again, I kind of compare this to the 2014 draft that the Raiders had under Reggie McKenzie when they had Mack. He was the star. That's Genty. Carr, obviously, he ended up being the quarterback for 9 years, right? You can look at Besh to be that guy. You can look at multiple guys to be a kind of equivalent to Carr. Porter could be that guy, whatever. Jackson, right? You got a couple guys on the offensive line. Thornton could be him. I just feel like that those roles are going to be filled, and you're going to get a lot of production out of this Raiders 2025 NFL draft class. And that's exactly what you got to do. You've got to be able to get production. We talked about 3 to 4 starters is a very good draft class. But when you turn 9 picks into 11, you have an opportunity to even hit on more. And that's what I'm excited about. But well done for John Spytek and Pete Carroll. And trust and believe, we're going to definitely go through each and every one of these players that they drafted. We'll break them down individually over the next few weeks. Matter of fact, on my radio show today, we'll be talking with someone who covers FCS football. So Tommy Malott, the quarterback from Montana State, and Cam Miller, quarterback from North Dakota State, we'll be talking about a lot. So get some good feedback there. Definitely bring it on the show tomorrow. But what do you think about the 2025 NFL draft? You've heard my thoughts. How are you feeling about it? 707-654-4693, your calls and texts. We'll close out the show. We'll do that next here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, we do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that is Nissan. The Nissan Armada, matter of fact, pick of the week is brought to you by our friends Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. This week, we're highlighting the top pick from our draft, the one selection that truly stood out, the guy who showcased the strength and power to push the Raiders forward as we look ahead to next season. Normally, I bring up Ashton Genty because that's easy. But this week's Armada clear-cut top pick of the draft is Jack Besh, who has a fantastic story. The wide receiver out of TCU lost his brother in the New Year's tragedy there in New Orleans with the terrorist attack that happened. But he is the guy that I want to talk about being heavy-duty, rugged, conquers the road with capability and confidence, dream big, go big. That describes Jack Besh to a T and then some. That guy, if you have any sort of a heart, he's going to be a guy that you definitely cheer for. You're going to want him to have all the success and then some. And when it comes to Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what I think of when I think of Jack Besh and what he could do with the Raiders. It's clear that our top pick of the draft is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of their outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. ShopNissan.com. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Went a little long there. Segment 1 and 2 got a little fired up and excited about the Raiders and their draft class. So won't be able to get to as many calls and texts, but we'll try to hustle through a few of them as we get going. So here we go. Dominique in the Show Me State. He's going to lead us off. He's going to get his Ricky Henderson on. He's calling to give his overall feelings on the draft, and for the most part, it's pretty positive. Even brings up his favorite pick. Might not be the guy you think it is. Here he is, Dominique in the Show Me State.
Hey, Q, this is Dominique from the Show Me State. How you doing, brother? Just got a few things just to touch on in regards to the draft. Let me start by saying this. Overall, I think we have had a phenomenal draft. I would give it a B+. The only 2 issues I have is why I wouldn't give it an A+. I did want us to draft another running back later. I want us to draft 2 running backs. Also, I did want us to draft a quarterback in the 2nd or 3rd round. In particular, Shedeur Sanders, I really think we should have took a flyer on him on day 3. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't cost you anything, but him in the 4th or 5th round would have been a home run. Jalen Milroe, I wouldn't have been mad if we took a shot at him in the 2nd or 3rd round. Or Will Howard. I wouldn't have been mad if we got Will Howard on day 3. Not getting any 3 of those guys kind of bothers me a little bit because, we constantly, every year, we pass on drafting a quarterback pretty early and finding our franchise quarterback. But other than that, I thought the draft was great. Those are my only issues. Other than that, home run draft, honestly. I love Darian Porter. He's one of my favorites. The other favorite pick for me is Tommy Millott, Montana State quarterback, but he will play receiver for us. I think he'll develop into a pretty good athlete. Hopefully we can develop him, give him some time, and he turns into the next Julian Edelman. But overall, love the draft. Let me know what you think, Q, and I'll be listening as always, brother. Thanks.
Dominique, thanks so much for the call, and I agree with the assessment of the draft being a really good one. B+, I think, is more than fair. I actually said that. I was out on Sunday night having some dinner, and somebody asked me, like, well, Q, what would you give the assessment of the draft? I was like, I think a B+ is fair. Oh, how come an A? Well, it's fine, right? A B+ is great. Right, all my years in school, I would take a B+. So I think a B+ is great. As far as Shedeur or Milroe, of course, I think anyone who's listening to the show knows how I feel about both those guys. I would have had no problem with it, but I get it. Right? I think the Raiders did exactly what they needed to do. Porter excites me because of his size. Prototypical Pete Carroll defensive back. Millott and Miller, two FCS guys. I'm intrigued by see how they're going to work, but. It is what it is. Obviously, Shedeur Sanders, his slide was a huge conversation when it came to the draft. Cleveland got him in the 5th round. Now he's got an opportunity to go out and prove himself, right? It's not about where you're drafted. It's about what you do after you get drafted. So he's got the opportunity. He's in the building. He's got a team. Go do what he does. Jalen Milroe, thought it was a great pick in the 3rd round by the Seahawks, right? That he's got an opportunity as well to do what I've been talking about and be a key cog to the team, but also be able to learn behind a veteran in Sam Bradford. So not Sam Bradford, Sam Darnold. Geez, Sam Bradford ain't played in many moons. Sam Darnold, sorry about that. But yeah, he's got an opportunity to learn behind him. If it was Sam Bradford, he'd have to be in there right now. Because that guy would get injured walking to his locker. But anyway, that's another conversation. So Dominique, thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Tony in Clayton, North Carolina. That says, Q, I look at my phone this Sunday morning, and the NFL report gives the Raiders an A for their draftees. Looking at the positions needed, it looks like we covered them. Now it's up to the people filling the positions to produce. I actually feel good. I can't ask for anything but effort from the organization to produce a team, have an opportunity to succeed, and then put some seasoned chefs in the kitchen to use the ingredients correctly. Hats off to the Raiders organization so far for truly going about building a team the right way. They truly are committing to the process to be better and back to excellence soon, hopefully. Be easy, Q. That's Tony in Clayton, North Carolina. I couldn't agree more. Right at the beginning of the year when we were talking about New Year's resolutions, I said the Raiders need to make commitment to excellence and just win, baby, more than what I say at the end of a show, more than just a T-shirt. They need to actually do that. And it feels like they're on the right track to doing that. Now, obviously, we don't know what this draft actually will be until we see them on the field producing or not producing or whatever the case may be. But it does feel good, and it feels great to look, no matter what outlet I look at or who I talk to, everyone say, hey, man, your Raiders did really good. I mean, to walk around the media room in Green Bay and everyone knows me as well as they do was like, man, Q, your Raiders are killing it. Man, your Raiders are having a great draft. Like, that was so great to hear because it's been so many years where they're like, Q, what was that? Man, I don't know. Right? So it's so good to be able to be on that end of things. Now, again, they've got to go out there and make it happen and show that everyone's right. But, man, it sure does feel good to hear people talking good about the silver and black. So thanks so much for that text, Tony. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Be Easy Raider in San Antonio, Texas. He's calling to talk about the draft, how excited he is about the Raiders did, and the only thing he wasn't a big fan of. Here he is, Be Easy Raider in San Antonio.
Hey, Q. This is Be Easy Raider calling out of San Antonio, Texas. Great time to be a Raider. Thanks. Appreciate all you did this week, keeping us up to date on all the information. Just a couple of things I want to say. One, I'm excited about the draft. Love that we got Genty. Love some of the depth, some of the pieces that, are going to fit into the program. I can't wait to see this now. Now we got the weight. Second thing, the only thing I didn't, not to be too negative, the only thing I couldn't understand was how Shedeur kept dropping because I did want Shedeur. And then it kind of dawned on me once I heard Shiloh make one comment and I realized what really happened. Similar to when Lamar had his mom be his agent, so we started hearing all these rumors about him and, like, all these problems and why teams didn't want to trade for him and yada, yada, yada. I think that's exactly what happened. And the problem with that was Lamar wanted to cut out the agents, that 3%, but these owners, they like the agents. They do deals with the agents. You give us a deal over here, we'll give you a deal over there. Yada, yada, yada. They have long relationships with these organizations and with these owners. And I think that's exactly what happened with Shedeur. Shiloh made a comment like, oh, Dad being your agent, this is how it's working out. And it kind of dawned on me. I couldn't figure it out, but, like, it wasn't the play, and that's the same thing that happened with Lamar. They tried to act like, oh, there's a reason why no one wanted to trade for him. He's not that good. I don't buy it. And I think the same thing's going to happen with Shedeur. He's going to wind up starting, and he's going to wind up being just as talented as Mel Kiper said and Daniel Jeremiah and all the draft guys said. The problem was, and we all forgot about it with Lamar because he went on to have an MVP season, and then all those narratives and all that the rumors that came out, like, they kind of disappeared. But same thing that's about to happen with Shedeur. It was because they cut out the agents. Dion was helping him in an advisory role, and it was just, so they're cutting out that 3% to the agents, which I think they're trying to protect those agents because, again, they do have relationships with these teams. So anyway, I don't want to drag it too much, but now we're hearing all the rumors about Shedeur and this and that and how he isn't as talented as all these professional advisors said he was, and people are loving it because, but I don't think any of that has any sort of truth. Never heard a negative word about him from any of his teammates, So, like, and this all just started happening to come out, and I realize now, oh, he doesn't have an agent. They hate that. But anyway, love the show. Raider Nation till I die. Looking forward to this season. Take care, everybody. Raiders.
Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. I'm excited about the Raider draft class. I really am. I think it's going to be an important class, really set the foundation. Like I mentioned in segment number 2, feels like that 2014 class where things started to get turned around. I feel like moving forward in a couple years, if the Raiders are successful, like I think they're going to be successful, I think you can say, hey, man, remember that 2025 draft class? The first one with John Spytek and Pete Carroll together? That's the one that really paved the way. And that goes back to 2014. As far as Shedeur goes, I mean, I don't think it's the agent. I think it's his skill set wasn't elite, right? I don't think any of us ever thought that he was elite. As much as I like him, I don't think that his skill set's elite. His confidence, his personality was greater than what teams wanted to deal with, right? I mean, there became a part in the draft where it said, hey, man, do we want our backup quarterback having a bigger personality or being a bigger, like face and name and just to do than our starting quarterback? Probably not. Right. And so, I heard a lot of people saying that they didn't want him to be a silo in the locker room, meaning just be a me guy as opposed to a we guy. So that's the rap that was on him. That's fine. A lot of that was self-inflicted. A lot of that was inflicted by his pops. A lot of that was, hey, they're going to do their things their way in Colorado and you can't tell them nothing. Well, guess what? The NFL is a different ball game. Right? You can run your program like you want to, just like I can run my house the way I want to run my house. But if I get out into somewhere else and I'm under someone else's roof, I can't do that. And so the NFL is someone else's roof. Colorado is a separate program. So, look, the bottom line for Shedeur, it was not the draft that he expected or any of us expected for him. He went in the 5th round, but he went. He got drafted by a team. He's on a roster. Now he has a chance to go out and prove it. I think he's the best quarterback on the Browns roster, but that's just me. So he's got to go out there and prove it. And if he's worth the salt, he will. I was talking to my pops on Saturday. I always go and get my hair cut. Matter of fact, got right in town, went to the barbershop, got my hair cut, and then called my dad. I always call him on Saturdays, right? So we're talking about it. And I said, look, the bottom line is now he's got to go out there and prove it. And if he's worth the salt, if he's got, he's got it in him, he's got a little edge in his neck, right, then he'll go out there and do it. I know me. If I felt like I got slighted, I'd do everything I can to prove myself correct and everybody else wrong. So that's all he's got to do. And if he can do it, he can do it. If he can't, well, tough break. That's just how it is, right? So I'm never going to – I know there's people that root for him to fail because they don't like him. That's fine. I'm not going to do that. I know how difficult it is to achieve anything in life, so I'm never going to root for someone to fail. I don't care who they are, whether I like them or not. Some people will. There's some people that right now that are listening that are so happy, like, yeah, your boy dropped, ha, 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 and that's fine. That's cool. I don't have no problem with that. That's a them thing. They got to deal with that. I don't have to. I'm not going to root for him to fail, but he's going to have to go out there and prove himself, and that's the challenge. And that's what competition's all about. So now, he's at a team where there's 5 quarterbacks in the room, even though, Deshaun Watson won't play in 2025. But, hey, like I said, if he's worth the salt, he'll go out there and prove it. If he's not, well, like I said, tough break. So thanks so much for the call, my man. I definitely appreciate you. We'll close things out with a text from 360 Raider. Say, what up, Q? 360 Raider here. That was some draft. From the Sanders drama to the Mel meltdown. We got our man Genty, but man, this kid Besh looks great. This whole draft looks really, really good. The lowest grade I've seen so far, the Raiders draft is a B+. Are the Raiders actually drafting good? Pinch me. This can't be real. Have a good one, Q. That's from 360 Raider. And yeah, they are drafting really well, right? And the thing is, John Spytek, he was, boots on the ground in Tampa Bay. He was Jason Licht's right-hand man, right? He was able to do a lot of good things and understand what the ball game is all about. And like Pete Carroll said, the Friday that they had that press conference before they went into draft week, like he doesn't seem like he's some brand new GM. He's a guy that feels like he's a seasoned veteran. Then you have a seasoned veteran next to him in Pete Carroll, and you got to feel good about it. We've talked about it quite a bit. It feels like that there is a lot of adults in the room, and that's not a slight or disrespect to anyone else before him, but a lot of people didn't know. I thought Tom Telesco did a good job with his one draft that he had last year with the Raiders, but I think John Spytek knocked it out the park. I think the 11 guys, 11 that they came away with, again, they started with 9, and they ended up with 11. And really good dudes. Again, they didn't get over anxious. That was something John Spytek talked about. Teams got anxious to go get their guy. The Raiders didn't do that. They just, okay, hey, we'll trade back, collect a couple extra picks, and then still get some really good players. I thought they did a great job, really great job for their first draft together. And again, set the foundation for what this Raiders team could be moving forward. So thanks so much for that text. I appreciate you. Got a call from Barry from Baltimore, a text from Romo Raider, Derek in Missouri, Raider Matt in the OC. We'll get all that coming up on tomorrow's show. We'll have more news and notes, and we'll start to break down each of the 11 players that the Raiders drafted. We'll have a lot of great insight from people that are way smarter than me moving forward the next couple of weeks as we break down all these players. So make sure that you keep it right here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. So until tomorrow, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.